Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to our program, Spiritual Fireside Chats. I hope you had a wonderful Eid al-Adha, inshallah. So tonight our topic is We Are All Connected, and our special guest is Dr. Heather Laird. Before we start, I would like to recite a few verses, inshallah, and then I will introduce our speaker and her topic as well. So let me put the verses on the screen while I'm reciting. Inshallah, you may follow the meaning of the verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العظيم. Peace be upon all of you, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to our program again. As I mentioned, our topic is We Are All Connected. So I would like to introduce our topic with a beautiful quote from one of the physicists. His name is Neil deGrasse Tyson. So he says, we are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically. And tonight, alhamdulillah, also we are connected virtually. So I would like to also introduce our speaker, Dr. Heather Laird. Dr. Heather holds a doctorate of psychology and a master's in clinical psychology with a specialization in marriage and family therapy and master's in public administration and nonprofit management. She hosts Muslims and mental health on YouTube. And Dr. Heather has been awarded the Global Psychology Award and the Community Partnership Award in 2016. She received the Community Changemaker Award from the MPAC in 2017, and a commendation from Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti for her work in mental health in 2018, and also an award from Los Angeles City Council for her contribution to the Muslim community in Muslim mental health in 2019. So Dr. Heather was listed as in a bill of the House of Representatives in the United States as well. So I would like to welcome our speaker, Dr. Heather Laird. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Heather.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah.
Good to see you again. Alhamdulillah.
You as well.
How was
Eid Mubarak, inshallah. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I wanted to first say, Eid Mubarak to our whole community, and I hope that everybody was able to enjoy this blessed Eid and the times that we are living in. This is such a great topic, particularly for this reason. And listening to you recite these verses, I almost cried, honestly, because they're so meaningful and so relevant to the times that we're living in right now. So I want to approach this topic that we're all connected from 3 different angles tonight. Firstly, looking at filling in the spaces or the cleavages of the community. Secondly, looking at how our individualism and our communitarianism affects this. And then lastly, looking at the story of Moses and Khidr and what we can glean from that in terms of how we're all connected. So I want to start tonight with looking at first filling the spaces within our community, right? We are taught that we are all brothers and sisters in Islam, and Sheikh Asim, demonstrated that to us very clearly in the verses that he just recited. However, our reality is that we don't always see this within the community. People, especially in our very diverse American Muslim landscape, we often see that there are familial connections that exist, and sometimes even vestiges of tribalism that exist. But we don't see necessarily a wholly connected community. And one of the most obvious examples of that is amongst our converts. Our converts oftentimes are individually converting or have a couple members within their family who have converted, but not typically a whole family, although I do have to say that we have seen some exceptions in that in terms of the Latino community segment of our Muslim community where whole families have actually come to Islam, mashallah. And in this, there is a test for us as a community, because we are supposed to support one another. And back in Arabia, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was alive and was developing the Muslim community, this was not really an issue in terms of people understanding the need to have tribal affiliation. That was kind of a given. Like, people understood that we needed that was needed in order to, it was a matter of life and death, really. We have left that sort of paradigm in modernity and traded it for something else that I will discuss in a little bit. But by way of having traded something that may have been communally beneficial, we have left people behind. We have not filled those gaps. And one of the ways that our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, sought to do that was through the idea of brothering, right? Brothering was a concept that came about when the migration happened in Medina, where he paired people from different tribes together so that they may learn how to be brothers and sisters with one another, and in such an intimate way that eventually some of them felt that they had an argument for inheritance rights upon the passing of their quote unquote brothers. But he did this, some of the wisdom behind, there's many lessons behind it, but one of the big lessons behind it was to fill in that cleavage that existed without that direct tribal affiliation. And sometimes, people think this may be a thing of the past, because we certainly don't in America talk a lot about tribe. But whether you call it tribal affiliation or communal affiliation or familial affiliation, there is a strong need to have affiliation. And while we don't see the stark contrast of the matter of life and death like one might have found in the desert, there still is that urgency or that sense of life and death psychologically for people, at least. Sometimes it could extend to the basic life needs, because we don't really know what's happening with everybody in the way that we probably should, as a brother or sister would know about their sibling. And so this is one way in which we as a community could better ourselves and understand the whole concept that we're all connected, by beginning to reinstitute a program of brothering, or a system of brothering and sistering that existed in the time of the Prophet and still is beneficial. It's still a beneficial social program, if you will, today, or it would be if we were to implement it. And particularly in the times that we're living in, it's further highlighted, right? I mean, as we go and have to keep ourselves in safety and at a distance, there's even more of a highlight of why that's so important. And it looks like we're looking at potentially going back that direction again, because again, people have not realized the value of that we're all connected, and people are making very individual choices in some ways that are very selfish, right? And that has not been a benefit to the collective community. And so now we're looking at shutting down, potentially, again, we're all back to a mask mandate. And if people as a group don't get it together, we may end up back again, isolated for a period of time. And this kind of leads into my second point, which is, as a country in America, we set out in this great experiment of a republic. And by and large, this experiment has been successful in many ways. It has some demons in many ways in terms of some of its bad history. But in many ways, it has been successful. One of the ways that it has struggled is between the ideas of a liberal individualism and a communitarian value set, right? So what I mean by this is that our dominant culture seems to promote a very individualistic, autonomous way of living. And within that individualism, what we have seen it produce is a lot of loneliness for people. Now, there have been some freedoms that people in a very collectivistic or tribalistic reality would not have enjoyed. But the trade-off, it's kind of like in Quran, Allah talks about this in terms of food, right? In terms of what you would trade the better for the worse of food, right? But if we take that in a parallel way, we're seeing that, okay, so you may get some individual freedoms, but the trade-off is that you may end up lonely for some of those decisions. You may end up causing the whole community to suffer for some of those decisions. And the truth of the matter is, honestly, we're not individuals living on individual islands. So for example, myself, right? I'm not just Heather, but I'm also Laird, meaning that I'm not just myself, but I belong to a tribe, right? When people see me, they think many things. Actually, it depends on the lens that they're looking at through, rather. Sometimes they think I'm Arab, sometimes they think I'm white, sometimes they think they have no idea what I am, but regardless, I'm not just an individual off on an island somewhere by myself. I have affiliation. And for better or worse, I have affiliation to lots of different groups of people, and I have responsibilities that come with that affiliation. And so while I might try to be an individual, I can't deny the rights of children upon me. I can't deny the rights of the elderly upon me. I can't deny the rights of my brothers and sisters in Islam. To do so would negate, part of my purpose. And so this, while I may have some individual ideas and inclinations and preferences, I have to consider those in the context of the community of which I'm a part of, and the collective of which I'm a part of, in the country where I live. And this, I think, has escaped us in such a way that has been negative for us, because we have not realized that we are all connected. We need to find a balance between these two, because on the other end of that spectrum, we also saw people who grew up in a very tribalistic reality rebel against that as well, right? Some people even moved to the US to escape tribalism because they felt it was so oppressive. And so that's on the other end of the spectrum, where the tribe becomes so prominent that there's an oppressive nature to it. So somewhere in between our communitarian values and our individualism, we have to find some balance and demonstrate to one another that we are all connected, that we all matter, that we all have a place in this community. Everyone's work is valuable. And I think that's one of the ways in which sometimes things can get off course in our American construct, in the way that we don't value equally everybody's contribution in society. Everybody has a particular talent, that Allah has bestowed upon them, a particular gifts that when they are realized, they multiply. But when we don't realize them, when we don't honor them, then they can diminish as well. And as a community, we have an obligation to help people realize these pieces of themselves, and to also allow for their contributions. And that's another piece that we really need to work on, so that we can feel, that we are all connected and valued within the community. So what that looks like, right, is taking the time to clear up those cleavages by including people into tribe who haven't been a part of a tribe. It looks like redefining what tribe looks like, right? It's not just your literal ethnic lineage. It's not just your DNA. It's that affiliation that we're all Muslims, right? That we all have a place together, And then even beyond our community, our place within the public square, and how we affiliate in the broader society and how we connect and can be seen as an added value to our society, and not just some closed off group of people. And it looks like also reigniting tribe in the positive sense, right? That being tribal or communitarian is not necessarily a bad way to go. That there is a need for a balance between individualism and collectivism, so that we can both not be lonely, right? But that we can also be connected and not detached. Attachment, we learn, is so important. For all of you who are parents or who have cared for young people, you can see how quickly young people attach to others and how important that attachment becomes, and how, whether that's a positive attachment or a negative attachment, makes all the difference in the life, in that life as it develops through the years. It just makes a huge difference. Looking at another aspect of this, I want to look at the story of Moses and Khidr, right? So Moses and Khidr, you all are familiar, I'm sure, with the story in Quran. But Khidr is on a mission, right? He's on a mission to do Allah's work, and Moses is observing him and doesn't necessarily understand everything that he's doing. And Khidr even tries to communicate this to Moses, and what we come to understand are many things from that story, but one of them, again, is that we all have our part to play. We're all connected in that way, and that our story is less about the simple game of checkers where you hop around the board and take people's pieces, right? It's more like a match of chess where people are thinking 2 or 3 or 4 moves ahead, and that there's a whole story happening that's not just right in the present, not just right in the obvious. There's a much more complex story going on in our lives, and that if we don't take time to recognize this piece, we will fail to see how we are all connected. And what I mean by this are 2 things, right? Well, 3 things, actually. First, accepting that which we don't know, and that it's okay that we don't know. Sometimes we're not supposed to know. And as Sheikh Asim, recited earlier, we're not also sometimes supposed to investigate things, that can become sinful as well. At the same time, there's a balance to that, right? We need to know what's happening with our brothers and sisters. We don't need to investigate to the point of a sinful nature. And then point 2 and 3 is that we both need to have the rules which we function, right, adapt to the reality that we are a part of. And so what I mean by that, if we go back to the point I was making earlier about converts, we need to broaden ourselves and open ourselves up to accepting that which seems different to us. So we're adapting the rules to accept the reality that is on the ground. That is important, right? And to reach this place that we're all connected, to reach a point of understanding. Conversely, we also need to adapt our reality to the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made for us. Far too often, I am confronted with people who, not of their own necessarily choosing or even desire, are just not knowing their deen. They just have not been given access to knowing their deen, either because their families are not familiar themselves and can't transmit it, or their families don't practice it. It could be one or the other or both, or some combination, but that desire is still there, right? It's not being, the thirst is there, but it's not being quenched because they're not being given access in a way where they don't have to feel shame for seeking it. Because when you have, let's say when you have a Muslim name, or you come from a certain Muslim ethnic background, it is assumed that you know certain things, and maybe you don't because you just weren't given access, or the people who could give you access didn't have the training. And so you don't have that, and rather than feel shameful or feel embarrassed, you just don't seek it. And we end up with a community that looks like it's doing its part in a very performative way, but in substance, it's missing the whole enchilada, right? It's missing everything that is needed to make that community healthy and whole. And so this is another way in which, for us to be all connected, we need to get real, get honest with each other, and open up the access, open up the doors for learning and understanding, and highlight the importance of why understanding our deen is so important. What we need to know to be good community members, to be good Muslims, is like the equivalent of like our thumbs, right? It's not a huge body of knowledge. We can leave that huge body of knowledge to our shaykh, to our scholars, but to be good community members, contributing community members, we do need to have some basic knowledge, and we need to allow for that to happen in a way that people feel like we are inviting them to the deen, not making them have to kind of sneak to find it. And part of that is just recognizing that over time, people have strayed away, and people need a way to return. They need a way to come back, and in a way that protects their dignity and their pride. And that is a part of how we can all remain connected. So again, to highlight, one of the ways we do that is, again, to make our rules adapt to the reality that's on the ground. So we meet people where they are. If people, for example, are spending a lot of time on social media or forums, then maybe we meet them there. If people are interested in doing activities instead of sitting through a lecture, then maybe we meet them in that moment of an activity. But we meet people where they are, and we start to give them what they need in a way that they can receive it. But we do that by adapting the rules to our reality. And then conversely, we make sure that our reality still remains in what is halal and haram. We want it to exist in a place that Allah will see as a place of goodness and barakah, inshallah. So with that, I think I will end tonight and ask that Allah, bless our community, and hopefully, inshallah, reconnect us all together and fill in those gaps, fill in those cleavages, and bring us all, into one connected world, inshallah, and community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Heather, for this beautiful and insightful, enlightening talk. I'm looking if there's any question. I don't see it, but I have one question, if you don't mind. You spoke about individualism and collectivism and trying to find a balance in between. from your perspective, how can we find that balance? If you could give us a few tips, that would be wonderful, inshallah.
Sure. So how do we find that balance? I think that it looks something like looking at, who are the people within my life, right? There's myself and then my family. I'll use myself as an example, right? So like myself, my husband and my children, my mother-in-law also lives with me. I have my own family of origin, and then I have my community, right? My friends and my community, people I work with. So as I get to the bigger circles of community, I'm looking at all of that and saying, okay, where are my obligations, right? So part of that balance is, am I have I identified what my obligations are, and then am I fulfilling those obligations? And on the other hand, I have my own individual wants and desires. Am I doing some what I would call self-care? Because if I don't, it's kind of like they tell you on the airplane, you have to put your own mask on first before you help someone else, because if you don't, then you don't have the energy to give to others. So that self-care is important, that individual piece is important, but I don't go to the spa like every day, right? I don't spend all my time at the spa, otherwise I wouldn't be giving anybody anything, right? So I have to also look at what my obligations are and fulfill them. And sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes that can be really difficult. But we have to remember, it's kind of like how we treat money, right? Money is a lot. The money that we have is a law's money. Like, we have to treat it as such. It's not ours, really. And this world is very temporary. And so if we think about the temporariness of it, and that we're going through this very quickly, we want to get those obligations in before the temporariness is over. So I think that's kind of how we find the balance, is looking at those obligations and fulfilling them to the best of our ability, and also looking at our obligations towards self, to have that balance, and not allowing one to get more out of balance than the other. Sometimes that can be difficult, especially when there are difficult dynamics between individuals within a family. That can make things particularly difficult to fulfill the obligations, or just natural life order, right? My mother-in-law is 89 years old, and recently in the last few weeks, we got some bad news about her cognitive decline, and it's been a difficult thing to accept, not for her. So it's been difficult for some of the others of us who take care of her, right? Because it's hard to see a woman of her age, in who all of the sacrifices that she's made in her life, especially as a Black woman from the Jim Crow South, all the sacrifices that she's made in this life, at 89, to have gone through everything that she's gone through, to have children, to have raised them, to raise children that weren't even her own, and to see all that. And it's hard to see her then suffer the decline of her mind. But this is part of the test, but it's also the obligation of us. Sometimes Allah puts things in our path to see how we as a community will respond to it. It's not about the person who it's happening to. It's how will we rise to the occasion, to help the person in need. And so, inshallah, I hope that I am rising to that occasion, as her daughter-in-law. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, I could, and I've seen this, I've literally seen this, in our own community here in SoCal, parents whose children have left to go other places, and it's not that they forgot entirely about their parents, but they have, for whatever reason, they don't have that connectedness that I'm describing with my mother-in-law, right? They have forgotten their obligations toward their parents, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes parents neglect children. That happens as well, but on both sides of that, either way, it's not good for our community, and it's not good for the soul, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, if I tried to.
Thank you so much. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give strength to your mother-in-law, and
Inshallah.
bless you all for your support to her. Alhamdulillah. Someone just sent me a question, if you don't mind. Do you have time? Maybe just a quick answer.
Sure.
Could be the last one. The question is, what top 3 opportunities can be identified for Islamic Center of Southern California that would help them meet their community where they are in? I don't know if you would like to take, or even if it's just
I mean, I think I alone should not answer this question, but I guess what I would suggest, since I'm being asked, is that maybe we survey the community and ask them what they think are what the masjid community could do to help them, right? What they feel is missing. And I mean, I would not only survey the adults, but I would also survey the children, the youth group, let's say, and ask them what their top 3 opportunities would be. I think, because I think this applies to not just our ICSC community, but the communities in America by and large, is that we need more opportunities to connect with one another, to actually know one another. I just don't think enough of that is taking place. And part why I think that's not taking place is that people don't feel safe, right? You have to create an environment. And I'm not saying that this is not about ICSC at all, right? Like in and of itself, because I have found ICSC to be a very welcoming place. What I'm saying is it can't just be though a couple of people. It has to, the collective have to feel safe. And we do that by taking the time little by little to get to know each other, so that we can have communication, we can develop trust, and then vulnerability, right? We develop vulnerability out of being able to trust and feel safe and secure with people. And without, that happening, that it just doesn't happen. There's no fast way to it. But the ways in which we get to it, I think the community itself it would be really helpful to find out what they think would be the best ways of getting to it. And I think that would be different masjid by masjid, right? Like I think each one would have a different way of going about it. And then it looks like there's one more question. How can one remain receptive and objective when lost in translation while reading the Quran due to linguistical barriers? So this is where that individual and collective comes into play, like literally, because as an individual, if you are getting lost in translation while reading the Quran, because let's say you don't know Arabic, right? Then this is why we have people like Sheikh Asim, right? This is why we have our Shaykh and our learned scholars, so that they can help us with those barriers. We can knock those barriers down one by one. You're never too old to learn Arabic either. Like, honestly, it's a beautiful language. And when you are able to read the Quran in Arabic and actually understand the Arabic versus the English, it's like opening a whole new world, honestly. So no matter what age you are, you can make that one of your goals to start learning Arabic. But when but as you're making that transition, or if you don't feel like you're ready to make that transition, there are people who are available to help you understand. And, take advantage of that resource. This is what I was talking about earlier about accessing resources. We have them. It used to be like, I've been a Muslim for about 30 years now. So when I first became Muslim, people were still going overseas to learn Arabic because we didn't have the resources in the United States to really learn Arabic well. And also, we didn't even have access to things like hijab, believe it or not. It just wasn't readily available. So people were doing whatever they could to make it work. But now in 2021, we have so many people educated in Arabic that honestly, you don't have to go overseas anymore. It doesn't have to be cost prohibitive anymore for you to learn. Not just the Arabic language, but about Islam in general. We have a whole college now that is an Islamic college. And the other day they just announced, or I saw an advertisement for an Islamic seminary at Harvard. So, it's happening. We just have to avail ourselves and access the resources that are available.
I totally agree. We have Bayan College. They offer so many classes. And then also Islamic Center has so many different nightly program. As one of them is the message of the Quran. We do it on every Monday. Specifically, we go verse by verse and focus on the meaning and the deeper meaning. So thank you so much, Dr. Heather, for this beautiful program, for this beautiful presentation. Always, we are honored to have you in our programs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your family members. And again, your mother-in-law is in our prayers, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give her strength.
Thank you. And all of us, inshallah, may Allah bless all of us. And thank you for having me, inshallah.
Thank you. We'll see you again, hopefully, inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Dear brothers and sisters, we are going to pray Salatul Isha, inshallah. So let me call the adhan. And after the prayer, I will come back for the tasabih and the dua. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. ألم يأن للذين آمنوا أن تخشع قلوبهم لذكر الله وما نزل من الحق ولا يكونوا كالذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبل فطال عليهم الأمد فقست قلوبهم وكثير منهم فاسقون. اعلموا أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها قد بينا لكم الآيات لعلكم تعقلون. إن المصدقين والمصدقات وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعف لهم ولهم أجر كريم. والذين آمنوا بالله ورسله أولئك هم الصديقون والشهداء عند ربهم لهم أجرهم ونورهم. والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب الجحيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب وله وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور سابقوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها كعرض السماء والأرض أعدت للذين آمنوا بالله ورسله ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. تحيات لله والصلاة. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. التحيات لله والصلوات أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر ولله الحمد. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. استغفر الله. استغفر الله. استغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم، لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم، له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه، يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم، ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء، وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض، ولا يؤوده حفظهما، وهو العلي العظيم. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان الله، سبحان الله، سبحان الله، سبحان الله. الحمد لله، الحمد لله، الحمد لله. الحمد لله، الحمد لله، الحمد لله. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا، وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان، واجعلنا من الراشدين. O Allah, make faith dear to us and beautified in our hearts, and make disbelief, sin, and disobedience disliked to us, and make us among the rightly guided. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وطاعتك. O Allah, you are the controller of the hearts. Turn our hearts to your religion and obedience. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. O Allah, show us the truth as true and inspire us to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood and inspire us to abstain from it. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا. O Allah, give quick healings for those who are sick, and bless the souls of those who passed away. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات، إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. آمين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها، لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به، واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. صدق الله العظيم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our prayers, our du'as, our fasting, all of our good deeds, dear brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and protect you and grant you whatever is best for you, inshallah. I would like to remind you that takbirat will go on until tomorrow, including Salatul Asr, inshallah. That will be the last time of the prayer. And then also I would like to remind you that tomorrow is Friday, inshallah, happy and blessed Friday. And our khatib is going to be our beloved brother Hassan Zini. And the prayer is going to start the program with the recitation of the Quran at 12:45. So after the recitation, inshallah, the khutbah will start at 1 p.m. sharp. So please join us. You can join us in person or via Zoom or I'm sorry, via Facebook. So for all the details, you can always check our website and Facebook. Plus, if you wish to receive the weekly detailed program, we have newsletter every Friday in the morning. We send it out, inshallah, to all our community members. For that, you can sign up through our website. Please check islamiccenter.com. So once you sign up for this beautiful newsletter, inshallah, you will be informed with all the programs that are taking place on every week. And then also, please don't forget, Friday evening, we have also special program, Islamic Center and AMPAC put together about, Palestine, new approach. So for that, again, check our website and for the details and the website. And then every Mondays and Thursdays, we have nightly programs. So again, one more time, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart for our guest, Dr. Heather Laird. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her and bless her family members. So see you inshallah tomorrow. Until then, have a great night and sleep well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.